Ladies and gentlemen, Roster Watch Nation, welcome back to the epic Roster Watch Podcast, brought to you by RosterWatch.com. I'm Alex Dunlap here, of course, with the Trashman. This is the Week 4 Waiver Wire edition of the podcast, also streaming live on YouTube. If you guys have questions, get them in the YouTube chat. We'll answer them throughout the course of the show. And if you have players that you're interested in maybe talking about dropping, whether or not it's worth dropping any of these guys for any of the guys that are on the waiver wire cheat sheet, you can put them in there. I have a little bit of a list that I've got going just from some questions I've already seen from our pro members over at Roster Watch in the comments section, but certainly happy to add on to that. And we can give our advice about whether it's time to keep or drop some of these dudes. Also, another reminder, starting, I guess, this week, maybe next week, Byron will be doing the trade cast again. And it's probably our most popular in-season podcast. As far as I'm concerned, it's the most valuable podcast in season-long fantasy football with all the advice he's able to give about the various trade markets. And so we're going to put that on the main podcast feed right here where you're listening. But here's what we need. We've been told by upper management, who's basically our other partner here that doesn't go on any of the shows or anything like that. We need more ratings and reviews on Apple Podcasts. So if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, give a rating and a review. If we see that tick up to where we get 10, 20 reviews a week, we're going to be good to keep the Tradecast here on the main feed. Otherwise, it will be going behind the paywall for our pro members at rosterwatch.com. So make sure and rate and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts. I hate to come out with a threat like that. I hate to start with a threat. We're legit threatening you guys to take away Byron's Tradecast, which is awesome if you don't get the reviews coming in on Apple Podcasts. So, Trashman, now that we've sufficiently threatened our audience,
always like to threat the podcast with a threat.
We're gonna take it away from you. Get the reviews in. Okay.
That's how I start all my conversations.
Okay. And look, if you watch on YouTube, we didn't get an edict on high about anything on YouTube, but we certainly would appreciate any thumbs ups or comments or anything like that you guys do have if you're watching there. All right, Trashman. Just macro. I always mess this up. Macro is like the overall view, right? The 10,000 foot view. So the 10,000 foot view, I think on this slate it's a better waiver wire than we have had. It's a better waiver wire than we've had. It's one where there's some legitimate players this week that could be available in your league. My only concern is this: when I look at the waiver wire cheat sheet that's now up over at Roster Watch and Trashman to put it in, I've made a few changes to it. My only concern is that the guys at the very top, it's running backs, right? It's Khalil Herbert, of course, who went absolutely bananas for the Chicago Bears after David Montgomery goes down with what they're saying is, I guess, ankle and possibly knee. On Pro Football Doc's website, sixscore.com, the Pro Football Doc is talking about probably at least a few weeks absence for David Montgomery, which, I mean, we were able to see what Khalil Herbert was able to do on just 60% of snaps this last week. I mean, this dude, people talk about the 157 rushing yards, but I mean, this dude also had two targets, 22 total touches for 169 and a couple of touchdowns. Trashman, I mean, you were at Bears camp. Khalil Herbert looked better than David Montgomery has looked maybe ever in his life. I know it was against Houston.
He did look good at camp. But, I mean, Khalil Herbert is just a more efficient runner. If you look at what they did last season, Herbert had virtually the same statistics with, 40% less carries or touches. He's just a more efficient. He's a more efficient player. And so him getting a whole complement of snaps, I mean, it's gonna be him and was it Tristan
Ebner from Baylor.
Ebner, yeah. Yep. Ebner looked good at camp too, though. So I mean, but even if Herbert's getting 75% of touches, he's gonna do a lot of damage with him.
The Bears get the Giants next week. I'm looking at the matchup tool. The early matchup tool has the Bears facing the number 10 matchup for opposing running backs next week in the New York Giants. I mean, the one thing you will say though is that it's, they're a road underdog in this game, which I think might change, Trashman. I think that your Cowboys did a little bit to maybe do a little bit to influence the public perception of the New York Giants last night. But
I mean, who didn't think that was a ruse?
What the 2-0 Giants?
Yeah, come on.
Yeah. But so Khalil Herbert, he's going to get a couple weeks of runway here. It's going to be a good matchup next week. Probably once we get our initial rankings in, Trashman, I'm going to assume you're going to have Khalil Herbert in your top 24. So yeah. I think that, he's going to be a suitable immediate running back with upside to possibly look. This is a whole new organization that the Chicago Bears have, right? GM, head football coach, everything on down. They have no ties to David Montgomery, who could, looks to be very well be gone after this next year. They could want to see what they have in Khalil Herbert. I mean, it's just hard to put that genie back in the bottle. My question to you, Trashman, before I answer, we got some questions here in the chat already, and we'll get to you guys, we promise. But if Jamal Williams is available, we talked about him last week, how you should pick him up if he was available. He was just outside of the kind of, what is our limit on this? Like 55%?
55%. He's running about 62% right now.
Right. And we talked about him last week. Dude, I played him last week. I played him in DFS, which was awesome at 0.054% owned in the 153 max over on DK. So it was a smash, a total smash for Jamal Williams. It looks like DeAndre Swift is set to miss some time as well. So with that being the case, if for some reason Jamal Williams and Khalil Herbert are both available on your waiver wire, which I don't think is the case for a lot of people watching it or listening to this, because generally if you're watching it or listening to this, you're probably in a competitive league, right? But if they're both available, I know we probably have some listeners out there who both of them are going to be available. Do you lean one way or the other? And take any kind of keeper consideration out of this, because I think if it's in a league where you can pick these guys up off of free agency and keep them with your 13th round pick or something next year, certainly I'd pick up Khalil Herbert, and I would just hold him for the duration to see if I could have like a 4th rounder or something next year if David Montgomery's gone and he's the clear lead back for Chicago. But without that being
lean slightly to Jamal Williams, just because I think he's on the better offense.
Oh, well, yeah. You think?
I mean,
you think?
It's just, I mean, he's going to be in scoring position more often than Khalil Herbert will be with the Bears.
Yeah.
And on other defenses, I mean, the angle on stopping Herbert,
Yeah.
Okay.
We got thanks to Johnny Dimes and Michael Y in the comments for
Michael. I did wear my Henley today. I wore my Janet Jackson T-shirt.
Oh, there you go. That's cool. I could only see the top of it. I thought it was maybe like the top of some mountain or something like that. It's
mountain of pop music.
Yeah. Okay. So Lifelong Longhorn says he got a trade request yesterday. He'd give AJ Brown for Derrick Henry. His other wide receivers on his squad are Jamar Chase, Amari Cooper, Rashad Bateman, Curtis Samuel. Montgomery was his running back too. I mean, I don't mind getting Derrick. I don't mind getting Derrick Henry on that. I mean, if I have Derrick Henry,
he's deep at wide receiver.
Yeah,
and Montgomery was his RB2.
Man, Bateman.
It makes sense.
Bateman, what a letdown that was this last week, man. He's gonna get his cornbread taken by Mark Andrews a few times this year, I think. Trashman.
Isaiah likely.
Yeah. What about so do we consider Alexander Mattison in a separate tier? Because Dalvin Cook goes out of this game. It's the same shoulder injury that he's had. And if you listen to the Twitter doctors, they're talking about how he's going to be able to put on a brace on that shoulder and hopefully play through it. To me, what my spidey
senses... Is he day-to-day? Did they say that?
Yeah. From what my spidey senses tell me, though, he's going to get hurt again. And it might not even be that shoulder. It's probably going to be an ankle or something. It's going to be something else. And then all of a sudden they're going to say, damn it, just shut Dalvin down until he's completely healthy again.
I mean, that could very well be the case. Either way, I mean, Alex Madison needs to be owned. I mean, it kind of goes without saying. Yeah. At least once a season, it always comes in handy having him on your roster.
Let's see. Ben is asking, trade away James Robinson in a keeper league for Austin Eckler. I would certainly do that.
Yeah.
I would certainly do that. I know James Robinson's been great. I know he's a top 10. I actually haven't pulled in the new stats yet. I'll do that right after I get off here. But I would imagine after this week, he's top 10, top 8. As far as fantasy point scoring from the running back position, but they're going to get ETN going through the course of this year. They also, who knows what's going to happen? I mean, you realize James Robinson after this year, if it's a keeper league, we have no clarity on where he's going to be next year. Is it going to be here? Are they going to? I mean, they're going to pay him money. I don't really know, especially with ETN there. And this is an epic buy low spot for Austin Eckler. I mean, what are we really worried about any player that Austin Eckler has behind him? I mean, it's a great buy low spot. People are so worried about Justin Herbert, and the offense hasn't looked good, and they just lost Rashawn Slater and everything else like that. But, man, Eckler's the kind of guy who you actually use to disguise those sorts of shortcomings in your offense, right? He's the kind of guy who can be the extension of the run whenever your traditional methods aren't there. So I would certainly, I would trade away James Robinson for Austin Eckler in a keeper league. There's some people in the chat saying that they think that that's crazy, or that they say, hell no, don't do it. To me, it's just like, I can't believe I would be on such a completely opposite side of it. To me, I would click. I'm always going to go for the player who literally 3 weeks ago. And look, I mean, our process here at Roster Watch it's a Bayesian process. As we get new information, we're not going to be locked in our takes at all. We're going to adjust. That's what we do, right? That's what we're here talking things out. But I mean, still, it's like 3 weeks ago, we're talking about a guy that was going top 4 overall in fantasy drafts versus a guy that went like 9th round, who still has Travis Etienne lurking. Whenever, I will
say like he was going 9th round because of he was coming off of the injury, and he's kind of shown that that's not as big of a deal as we thought it would be.
Well, I get it. But I mean, for me, I have James Robinson in one league where I also have Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And I'm just like, well, Jesus Christ, how can I trade both these guys away high? I'd like to, in that league, I would love to get the stability of somebody that's been underperforming like Austin Eckler, just hope he can return to form down the stretch. Let's see. So these guys are saying that this James Robinson Eckler stuff, it's pretty. They're saying that, I mean, Michael Weiss saying, he's like, I don't know, I'm out on Eckler. He asked for less opportunities. I understand that, but it's like, it's at some point, who's he going to cede opportunities to? Isaiah Spiller's hurt. Larry Roundtree's on the practice squad. I mean, what are the Joshua Kelly?
Sony Michel?
I mean, come on, dude. That's the AFC West. Those games are about to get high flying and competitive. Herbert's going to get back to normal, and you're going to be like, are we kidding ourselves here? I mean, I know you got to win games now, but you just, What about further down here at the running back spot? We talked about the 3 kind of highest priority guys. I thought it was, somebody in the chat mentioned Jerick McKinnon. I've talked about him on the Seria show this weekend. He was a guy who I did something idiotic. I dropped Alexander Madison and picked up Jerick McKinnon before the start of the games this last week. Just saying like, well, here's one guy who's a clear backup, and here's another dude in Jerick McKinnon who I've kind of watched ticking up a little bit in that KC offense.
Well, he seems to be the back that they trust the most.
Well, I think they trust Clyde the most.
McKinnon was getting the goal line touches.
Clyde had the touchdown, but Clyde had 0 yards this week in a touchdown. I think I was looking at the snap counts, but let me make sure that I'm right about that. His total rushing yards, because I know his receiving yards, I think his receiving yards made up for some of it, but in week 3, so Clyde Edwards-Helaire was in on 40% of snaps. So 39 total yards. He had 12 touches for 1 touchdown. But I think his rushing line was 7 rushes for 0 yards and a touchdown. Because when I saw it, I said, well, how's that even possible? So
yeah, it was just the touchdown.
Yeah. So I think McKinnon's a good pickup. Like Brian Robinson is on here as well. I figure if you're in a competitive league, he's probably rostered. But I think in that tier of that kind of sub 10%, and all the free agent acquisition budget bids are in the sheet the Trashman's put together. But I think in that sort of 10%-ish sort of bid range, I think that Brian Robinson's a great pickup right now. If you don't feel like you're going to be able to get in on, or if you're on the back of the waiver order where you know that you're not getting Khalil Herbert, you're not getting any of these other guys, I think that Brian Robinson would be a great pickup now. They've been talking about him coming back in week 5 for a really long time. But I'm kind of with Trashman. If I had them all to choose from right now, not keeper league sensitive, I would go Jamal Williams, because we know that the Lions, I believe, have a week 6 bye. And Dan Campbell's already said that, they want Swift out through the bye. So we're talking about a guy who's going to be out till week 7. We're going to get a solid running back too for the time in between there. I do realize that for most of you, Jamal Williams is not available. Any of these other running backs you want to talk about before we move on to wide receiver Trashman? Because I feel like wide receiver doesn't, not quite as much right there at the top in that kind of top free agent budget spend or in that top sort of waiver wire spend.
Nobody terribly excited. I mean, Justice Hill did look good for Baltimore. It does look like he's the number 2 back right now in Baltimore.
Look at this guy, Seria Paulson. He's saying he's 0-3 right now with Herbert, Cook, Najee, Amon-Ra, Jamar Chase, Andrews, and Aaron Jones. How are you 0-3 with that team? Here's the thing, dude. Don't panic with that team. You got regression coming your way with a whole lot of these players. Most certain. I mean, dude, Jamar Chase is I can't believe Jamar Chase didn't go Pam versus the Jets. That was disappointing. It was all big Tyler Boyd action, which brings us to wide receivers, and none of these guys up here at the very top. But I do think, man, this 10 to 15% maybe budget range, or if none of these running backs that we talked about at the very top are available. There are a lot of these guys, and I'll just be interested how you sort of view the pecking. Zay Jones is just getting all kinds of action for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I've really liked how Trevor.
He's got the most receptions on the team through 3 weeks.
Yeah, but he's still the number 2, but behind Christian Kirk. But I'm beginning to think that being the number 2 in that offense might not be that bad.
Number 2, I mean, he's arguably the possession receiver.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Kirk gets the deep ball, but
they also manufactured touches for him. I mean, we forget they went out and they spent big on Zay Jones.
You know how much I loved Zay Jones coming out of the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, but then he took his pants off in the hotel. Once he took his pants off, we were hands off.
Hands off.
Yeah. What did he do? He took his pants off and jumped through a window.
Something like that.
What was he? Why did he do that?
I don't know. When I interviewed him, he seemed like a good kid, though.
Yeah, I
like Zay Jones, and he's got that NFL pedigree.
Dude, I think Zay. I think Zay is fine. There's these other guys, but here's the thing. There's also Romeo Doubs to talk about. Do you feel like he talk about two Senior Bowls? Romeo Doubs was terrible at this year's Senior Bowl.
He wasn't terrible. He had some good plays.
He couldn't get off Fred
with handling the press.
Yeah,
and I don't mean the press off the field.
Well, he was terrible with that too. If you'll remember, I've never, and see, his name's Romeo Doubs. Have we talked about that here on the podcast?
Yeah.
About how he actually he gave us the ID and he said, "Hey, this is Romeo Doubs, and you're listening to Roster Watch." And then, but then he tells everybody later that his name, that his real name's Dobbs. Like, well, what? He's like, I just didn't want to tell anybody before. I just, I didn't want to be a distraction or it's just like, it was a weird thing. But anyway, so, I mean, Romeo Doubs, clearly, I mean, there's going to be something going on here for him. Alan Lazard, so much talk coming into the season. It's like, well, who else is Aaron Rodgers going to throw? It's like with Alan Lazard, we know he sucks, but who else is he going to throw to? He's got the chemistry with Rodgers, and Alan Lazard's been hurt. That's been a whole big kaput, dude. I mean, the announcers who were in the production meetings all week this week for that Tampa Bay game said, like, dude, we're going to see a lot of Romeo Doubs this week. That's all the coaches have been saying. We're going to give him his opportunities. And Aaron Rodgers is saying that he's a guy who can do things that, only some of the top wide receivers that he's had to work with have been able to do. So as we mentioned earlier, as we get new information, we certainly assimilate it. Romeo Doubs should be picked up right now, for sure. But to me, it's like, how do you stack him up against a guy like Treylon Burks, who this last week, not as, didn't see quite as much from him to inspire as much confidence. I mean, only the 2 targets for 2 receptions at 21 yards, but he is playing 70% of snaps. If you look,
wide receiver is only as good as his quarterback.
Right. But I mean, he did lead the team in targets the week before. Robert Woods to me looks washed.
Woods had a great game this week.
Woods looks washed to me. He looks washed. He looks old. I understand it was what was it this week? 4 catches. 4 catches. I mean, with 4 catches, did he score? I just what did he have? Oh, I mean, all right. So we have 4 catches for 85. So better than I remember. Better than I remember. 9 targets. But like you said, what did you say? A wide receiver is what?
Only as good as his quarterback.
How soon do we see Malik Willis?
Hopefully not too long. Hopefully sooner than later.
He's a guy that we should be looking to pick up in deeper leagues, certainly than 2 quarterback leagues. Swavey JP's asking, are we answering trade questions? Yeah, man, if you have trade questions, put them in. Michael Wise saying we got to pick up Trashman's guy, Josh Reynolds. Dude, these are longtime listeners if they know your guy, Josh Reynolds. He's
in the waiver wire cheat sheet.
Yeah, he sure is. And which you can go check out, of course, over at rosterwatch.com. I think that, those are the, you wanted to have Kadarius Toney up super high. And I feel like that's probably having to do with the Sterling Shepard.
Sterling Shepard's gone. He's done.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think many in the industry are on this in the same way. I did look, I'm like, is he even available? Like he's only owned in like 41% of Yahoo leagues. So, I mean, he's out there in some leagues. It's just he's been disappointing because every week it's like, I mean, it's like something new. He gets dinged up again, or he's in some kind of doghouse or anything like that.
I mean, who's going to be the guy? Is it Richie James then?
What about Wandale?
Wandale's not healthy.
Yeah, but I mean, he'll be back at some point.
Yeah,
I noticed you didn't put him on the sheet. It's just because we don't know when he's coming back. It doesn't feel right to be picking him up right now. He's actually one of the guys that was asked about whether you can drop him for some of these other players. I said yes. I said yes for now, but that's
outside
something
of dynasty leagues.
Yeah, that's something that we can probably keep an eye on. And then I guess the only other ones to discuss, I couldn't believe it that Tyler Boyd and Jacoby Myers are available and basically right at the precipice of this. Both those guys feel a little bit safer to me than picking up maybe a Romeo Doubs or a Treylon Burks, maybe even a Zay Jones. I think out of all these guys, I kind of like Zay Jones the best. I can't, as weird as it is to say, but I know that's not quite how you have it stacked up, just because you're always going to kind of stack upside.
I mean, I've considered how much you're going to need to pay up for these guys. And I don't feel like Jones is somebody you're going to have to pay up a lot for.
All right. So Swavey JP is asking, if I don't see myself starting Courtland Sutton or T. Higgins for this foreseeable future, is it too early to trade one for DeAndre Hopkins for wide receiver 1 upside later in the season? Look, I mean, if I had either of those guys, I would see myself playing them most weeks, right? I like both Courtland Sutton and T. Higgins,
especially Higgins for me.
But yeah, I'd be interested. Michael Wise asking, and thank you guys for kind of talking this out with each other in the comments section. Brandon Cooks, Jonathan Wu, I'll go ahead and add him to the list here for the very end. Michael Wise saying, who else would you be starting over Sutton and Higgins otherwise? And that's kind of my question. It's like, if you don't foresee yourself starting him, does that, I mean, what you got like Jamar Chase and AJ Brown or something? Like, who are your other guys? He has Michael Pittman and Amon-Ra as well, and his running backs are stacked, he says. Yeah, look, I mean, if those are your 2 starters and this is the way that you feel, I think you probably could. I'd probably trade Sutton away over.
I mean,
Pickens.
although Pittman's had a slow start to the season,
not in week one, but yeah, certainly this last. What did Pittman end up with versus KC? It was.
It wasn't bad, but it wasn't good.
How many targets? I mean, he had. It was good. He had eight catches for 72 on 94% of snaps. So, that's
maybe I had him in a half-point PPR league.
There you go. So that's where we would go there. Any of these other guys? I mean, do you have any thought? You had Russell Gage a lot higher than I would ever have him. I know he had the big game this last week, but dude, Mike Evans is coming back this week. Godwin will be back soon enough. Like, it's going to be curtains for this idiot, Russell Gage. I
don't think it'll be curtains. I mean, at worst this week he's going to be the number 2.
Bob Watson's asking if he can move Zeke with Dak now coming back soon. Well, dude, like if you can move Zeke if you can sell high on him after scoring a touchdown last night and everything like that, I would certainly explore options to sell high on Zeke Elliott. That offensive line just doesn't really look as good, and Pollard's going to get more and more involved. I actually tweeted about it last night. I'm beginning to worry about Pollard and Dynasty that Jerry Jones might say, like, look, let's just give Tony some money and let's just bring him back to play the same damn role he's played this whole time behind Zeke. Like all of our Dynasty dreams for Tony Pollard getting to go to Baltimore or the 49ers or something. But
how long do you think Zeke's going to be around in Dallas? I mean,
I would have to look at his contract, but
I think he's up after this season, right?
No, let me look at that. So let's go. So spot track Ezekiel Elliott. Let's just see when his out years are, because and here's the thing. What's Tony Pollard going to command on the open market? So he's signed, dude. Zeke is signed through. No, he's not out after this year. They have a potential out in 2023 if they want to eat $11 million in dead cap. But he signed through the 2020. I mean, he signed a 6-year, $90 million deal with the Dallas Cowboys, where he's not going to get out of there until. And that was in. I
feel like I read something this preseason about him. Maybe it was just the option to get out of the deal.
It's a potential out in 2023 where he's going to represent a $16.7 million cap. Jesus Christ, a $16.7 million cap hit with 11.8 guaranteed. I think their earliest out for him will be 2024, where he's a $14.3 million cap hit at age 29, where only $6 million of that is dead. He's going to be around for at least another year. So, yeah, I mean, or at least 2022, 2023. They're not going to be able to get. They're not going to eat $11 million to get rid of Zeke. They love Zeke. They say he's the straw that stirs the drink. You've heard Stephen Jones. Okay, so anyway, you can go to the waiver wire cheat sheet, look at the rest of these guys. I was interested to kind of see. I had to put George Pickens on here, trash man. I'm surprised you didn't have George Pickens. He should be at the top of the heap of these kind of scrub players at the very bottom, right?
With Mitch Trubisky?
I know, but it's got to be Kenny Pickett coming in soon. It's got to be, right? But you just don't like Pickett, even, do you?
I mean, I like him more for Pickens than I do Trubisky, but I don't love him.
Yeah, a bunch of these guys, kind of just budget guys at the very bottom of the cheat sheet this week. As far as tight end, why don't you go over some of those guys, Trash Man? I'll look in the chat to see if there's any of these guys people have talked about. Looks like some people are talking about guys who they want to drop. And we also wait. Let me just. We did have one question I didn't get to. That was a good one. So this was Francisco Deonda. He's saying Darrell Henderson, Dameon Pierce, Breece Hall, or Khalil Herbert for rest of season in order. So that for me goes Dameon Pierce, Breece Hall, Khalil Herbert, Darrell Henderson. I think there's an argument for putting Henderson over Herbert. I don't think there's an argument for putting Herbert over Hall.
No,
I think Hall's.
I think Herbert's shown himself to be a better running back. I don't know if he's going to get the opportunities that Hall is.
Well, dude, Hall's not even getting that many opportunities. Dude, this whole thing with Ty Johnson rotating in, this is a third. This is like who invited Ty Johnson to this party? I mean, what the hell's going on here? I thought this was a twosome. You got some third wheel showing up here. This guy's a I mean, kind of third wheel that shows up for your big date night and ruins everything. I hate it.
Yeah, I don't know. I like Herbert more than both of those guys.
Okay. So, all right, talk about tight ends then. Let's answer this question. We have Swavey JP asking, how much should we be panicking on Dalvin Cook? Well, Swavey, that's completely up to you and how much you like to panic. And it's all completely up to you. If you're the type that I used to play music, right? And my singer in this band I was in would be like, hey guys, I'm just gonna go up to the hotel room and just go stress for a while. And I'd be like, what kind of attitude is that? You're gonna go up to the hotel room and you're making plans to go stress yourself out? I don't get it. Like, that's your choice, dude. Like, what are you gonna? Yeah, I mean, you could choose to panic. You could choose to, what is in the office? What is it? Ryan the Temp says he learned in business school. Adapt, react, readapt, act. That's what you got to do, man. Adapt, react, readapt, act. All right. Look for opportunities with Dalvin Cook. The good news is he's going to play. Maybe if he plays and Alexander Mattison doesn't bite into it and you're still panicky about him, try to sell him off to people who will still buy into the name brand. I'm the kind of guy who would buy in on Dalvin Cook right now, obviously. All right. Tight ends. I'm sorry, Trash Man. I've thrown it, and now I'm gonna and you're start talking about tight ends, and I'm gonna cut you off and interrupt for the third straight time, right?
It's all that. Tyler Conklin, as usual, is my top tight end waiver pick. I mean, I think he's number 3 on the season right now, at least as far as targets go for tight ends. I just really think there isn't a better waiver pickup at tight end right now in fantasy football.
Does the Zach Wilson stuff, if he comes in, does that bother you?
That's the one thing. That's the one aspect of the situation that I'm a little bit, tentative about. Is I don't know if Zach Wilson's going to have the same affinity for Conklin that Flacco has shown. But I mean, he's a gamer. I mean, I feel like you're not going to have to pay up for him. He doesn't have to be a top waiver priority. But I think he's going to be an easy streamer every week.
I think he's going to be not that easy to get on waivers this week. I think he was easy to get last.
Well, I mean, he was
easy to get last week. I mean, you could have got him off of free agency last week, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure this week he's going to be quite as easy to get.
I just don't think people are paying attention to him. I don't think that people are paying attention to the Jets.
Okay. Looks like we're getting some questions in here for people to drop and stuff. You have any quarterbacks you want to talk about? And then,
I mean, Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
I mean, he looks like he's really turned a corner this season. He's improved every game so far this season. Statistically speaking, he's got good weapons. He looks like he's got a better sense of control and understanding of the game this season. I like Trevor Lawrence a lot as somebody you can pick up in most leagues. I mean, He's my top waiver quarterback pick this week. And I still like Marcus Mariota. Just, I love quarterbacks. I love running backs who throw touchdowns, and Mariota's proven to have a pretty solid floor there.
Yeah. He's not gonna win you weeks single-handedly, but in a pinch, he can get you by. He certainly also.
Hey, with Russell Wilson ruining at least one of my leagues,
talk about dude. What about Kyler Murray ruining leagues? This hurts, dude. It hurts having Kyler going for these 8-point games and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so Rudy Mazzocca asks, is it time to sell CEH and buy Kamara? Here's the thing. I'm actively looking to sell CEH. If I could get Alvin Kamara out of that deal on the low, I would do it just because that's why I play fantasy football. I want to stack upside, and I'm worried about CEH's. I'm worried about the running back usage there. I'm worried about I don't have the expected points model pulled up yet for this week, but I guarantee you he's top 5 in expected points differential. He's just one of these guys that's way outscoring what he should be fantasy wise. I think James Robinson's probably one of those guys as well. Okay, we got one more here. Trade DeAndre Hopkins for Christian Kirk. I don't have an immediate need. I just love Kirk. I like Kirk to be better than Nuke when he returns. Am I crazy? I don't think you're crazy. I think Kirk has looked good. Like we said, we're bullish on Jacksonville. At this point, I think for rest of season, I would still keep DeAndre Hopkins just because we've now gotten to week 3, and I think what Johnny Dimes is saying is right. Kyler needs Nuke back. I think that having a guy like DeAndre Hopkins there in that offense,
Greg George isn't cutting it for you.
He's right. I think having DeAndre Hopkins in that offense changes the nature of the offense entirely, which is like is a self-fulfilling prophecy for Nuke for sure. Even though DeAndre Hopkins has me blocked on Twitter, can you believe this? Somebody retweeted one of his tweets with a quote tweet or something. It says you can't view this tweet because like the user's blocked you. I'm like, blocked me? I'm like, what have I ever done to anybody on Twitter? I click on it. It's DeAndre Hopkins.
Oh wow.
Blocked?
It's a little badge of honor.
I wonder if he did it. I wonder if he did it on accident. Cody Carpentier, our good friend, did a little research for me on this, and he thinks it had to do with a tweet I sent back in 2015 about the potty party he threw at the combine. Anyway, all right. Okay, so here we go. Thanks to everybody for watching today. Again, the trade cast starting this week. Hopefully, Byron is evacuating from Florida right now, so if he can't get it out.
I was wondering about that. Where's he headed?
I don't know. Probably somewhere cool. Byron.
Michael, real quick, with Russ. I mean, Russ hasn't looked the same since his injury last season. Play calling, that's an issue for sure, but he hasn't looked the same.
Okay. Here we go, Trash Man. Can you drop these players? Can you drop them for any of these guys on the waiver wire cheat sheet? And then just another reminder too, again, I didn't finish. Byron's evacuating. We don't know if the trade cast will happen this week to start. And it'll go until your trade deadlines end, but it'll at least be starting next week. Hopefully this week, you're going to get the full rundown of all the trade targets, all the buy targets, all the sell targets at every position from Byron, who is an absolute game theory expert and a trading master. And you're going to get it here on this podcast feed. But what we need from you on Apple Podcasts is more ratings and reviews, because that's just what they're telling us. I hate to shill for them, but it's just what we're being told. We need more ratings and reviews on Apple Podcasts for some reason. It helps with getting the show out. They say we don't have enough. So if you guys, especially for the number of listeners that we have, it's like it really, like if everybody who listened to the show left a review, we would have like they were saying, if everybody who listened to the show left a review, we would have literally I think it was 55 times more reviews than we do right now. So if you guys could please do that, we would certainly appreciate it. Okay, Trash Man, can you get rid of Wan'Dale Robinson for any of these guys?
Outside of dynasty leagues, yeah.
Of course you can. Sky Moore, who was just miserable. Did you see the muff punt?
Yeah. Well, and they said they were going to get him more touches, but yeah, you can get rid of Sky Moore.
Another chief.
Dynasty.
Another chief, Isaiah Pacheco.
I'm holding out for Pacheco and outside, you
would drop him for Herbert.
Yeah.
Madison, any of these guys if you had to, but not for these bottom of the barrel dudes. Okay. Robbie Anderson, who had the big week 1, but who's been an absolute
I think it could be somebody different every week on that offense.
I can't believe somebody's asking this. Somebody asks about Brandon Cooks. They're just pissed about last week.
I guess so. No, you can't.
You can't drop Brandon
Absolutely
Cooks.
Not.
Or you can just. I wish we could do like cross league trades. Just trade him.
I'll
just
give
like
you
trade him to me, and from your league, we'll send somebody else back to you. Okay, so Cooks, we're not dropping him. Alec Pierce. who doesn't look as good as Ashton Doolin, but he
had
did
his
get a
best
little
game
bit
this past week. That offense is just so. I just don't know what's going on with that offense right now.
Why does the offensive line look so bad? They're such good.
Yeah, the offensive line looks terrible.
How?
I don't know, but yeah, I mean, you can. Alec Pierce, he doesn't matter to me right now in fantasy football.
I'd be fine dropping him. How about another Colt, Nyheim Hines, who's done jack.
No.
After don't drop him.
I wouldn't.
He hasn't done anything, trash man.
I mean, he's getting targets.
Is he? What has he gotten? Nyheim Hines? Is he getting targets? I mean, I mean, it's my job to look at this stuff. He doesn't show up with a good target share on our ranking sheet. He hasn't done anything on the fantasy scoring side. It's like, what has he done? I mean, am I crazy here? He's gotten you. What has he gotten you? He's gotten you an 8-pointer and a couple of 5-pointers.
He's got what? He's got 17 targets through 3 weeks.
I guess that's probably, yeah. I mean, dude, he's on the precipice of being droppable, and I would drop Nyheim Hines for any of the top 3 running backs that we've discussed today. How do we? Let's see here. Let's block that user right there. Okay. MVS. What do we do with Marquez Valdez Scantling?
He's droppable. I mean, just that Kansas City offense. There's too much
week to week. Yeah, I feel the same way. Here's somebody asked Noah Brown. I'm like, yeah, oh yes.
I love Noah Brown.
With Michael Gallup coming back, you still like Noah Brown?
I mean,
that whole thing is a Cooper Rush
receiver. Then that
whole thing is a Cooper Rush Noah Brown connection. Dak Prescott doesn't give a shit about Noah fucking Brown.
When's Dak coming back?
If it was up to Jerry, he'd have been back two weeks ago playing on some kind of cast. I don't know.
But they said 6 to 8 weeks initially, right?
Yes, but I think they were saying 4. They were saying 4 to 6, and then Jerry keeps acting like it's more like 4. Of course. I
mean, I think there's a vacuum at third receiver there in Dallas. I mean,
okay, so Trash Man's look. I would get rid of him I would get rid of Noah Brown for Romeo Doubs, Treylon Burks, any of those guys in the split damn sec. Zay Jones, Tyler Boyd. I get rid of him for Gallup and wait on Gallup. I get rid of him for if there's a Jacoby Myers.
I get rid of him for that first tier.
The first tier on the cheat sheet.
The cheat sheet.
Kenny Walker.
Yeah, I mean, DJ Dallas is playing ahead of him.
Don't drop Kenny Walker. Don't drop Kenny Walker. It's going to be a mistake that you're going to hate yourself for a long time. Don't do it.
I mean, they seem to like Penny right now.
Don't do it. What about Tyler Algier?
I thought he was coming up. Then Cordell Patterson gets another, 20-something touch game. I'm indifferent about Algier right now.
He's fine to drop. Here he is, Trash Man, the toughest one. We knew we were going to get it this week if it didn't happen for him this week. Coming off let's see what he's coming off here. Coming off a week 3 where he saw 6 targets on 94% of snaps as the number 1 wide receiver for his team.
Darnell Mooney, huh? No.
You can't drop him?
You got to that's too much value. Try to trade him.
To who?
It doesn't matter.
So who's going around buying Darnell Mooney right now?
I would buy him. I would buy low on him if paired up with somebody else. I would take that chance.